Hello and welcome to All in Motion. I am your host, Jake. Thank you to our next guest for taking his time to sit down with All in Motion. And thank you all for tuning in. This is an All in Motion exclusive. This is episode 33, The Art of Networking. Again, I had the pleasure of sitting down with Dr. Ivan Misner. He is the founder and chief visionary officer of BNI, the world's largest business networking organization. Founded in 1985, the organization now has over 9,800 chapters throughout every populated continent of the world. Last year alone, BNI generated almost 12.3 million referrals, resulting in $16.7 billion. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, $1 billion worth of business for its members. Dr. Misner's Ph.D. is from the University of Southern California. He is a New York Times best-selling author who has written 28 books, including one of his latest books, Who's in Your Room? He is also a columnist for Entrepreneur.com and has been a university professor as well as a member of the board of trustees for the University of Laverne. Called the father of modern networking by Forbes and CNN, Dr. Misner is considered to be one of the world's leading experts on business networking and has been a keynote speaker for major corporations and associations throughout the world. He has been featured in the LA Times, Wall Street Journal, and New York Times, as well as numerous TV and radio shows, including CNN, the BBC, and the Today Show on NBC. Among his many awards, he has been named Humanitarian of the Year by the Red Cross and has been the recipient of the John C. Maxwell Leadership Award. He is proud that he and his late wife, Elizabeth, are the co-founders of the BNI Charitable Foundation. They also reached empty nester status after happily raising their 3 children. And in his spare time, he is an amateur magician and a black belt in karate. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Ivan Misner. Dr. Misner, welcome to All Motion, sir. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jacob. It's a pleasure to be on, and please call me Ivan.
Ivan, okay. Again, thank you. We finally set this up. It's great to have you. And before we get into it, just want to speak about 2 of your books that I actually were amazing. The first being Master of Networking. Some of the big points I pulled out of those was word of mouth, why giving is so important. I feel like a lot of people in the United States, because of our culture, unfortunately, we get away from that. Making a first good impression.
Yeah.
Some of those, I just touch on those, and then I'll to speak on the other, the Master of Success as well.
Yeah, well, those 2 books, I love doing those books. They're a compilation of contributing authors. I think we had like almost 80 contributing authors in each one of the 2 books. And it was a lot of fun to do. Those books have been around a long time. Masters of Networking, is really about contributions from people globally. It was very diverse, a long time ago in different perspectives on what it takes to network effectively. And of course, Masters of Success was similar in the sense that many people who had success in their careers, there were people who were, locally successful and then multimillionaire global names who contributed to the book and all gave their perspective on what it took to be successful. Those 2 books were a lot of fun to do.
And I don't think you mentioned it, Ivan. Masters of Networking is a New York Times bestseller, sir.
It was indeed. Masters of Networking was a New York Times bestseller, and I think Masters of Success was a Wall Street Journal
Yes, sir.
bestseller. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
But who's counting?
That's right. No, I just want to make sure that the audience definitely understands and knows that. And you also have 25 other books out there that are amazing, and everybody should go either on Amazon or whatever you shop to definitely pick them up.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So just getting right into it. This topic, and I know we're back and forth. It's so important because I feel though as if we've never, I don't want to say the Spanish flu, since we had a pandemic this size. Unfortunately, people have isolated, and so there's some questions that are surrounding all of this. But definitely just want the ideas of All Emotion is to just definitely reach anyone and provide them some tools that they could potentially use and grow and be a better person. So firstly, what made you want to start BNI in 1985?
Well, look, I'd like to tell you I had this vision of an international organization with we now have 10,800 chapters. I got the report this morning, 10,800 chapters in 76 countries. I'd like to tell you that was my original vision, but the truth is I needed some referrals for my consulting practice. I was a management consultant. And I wanted to help my friends. I hoped that they'd be willing to help me, and I wanted to help them. And we got together. We took, from the very beginning, one person per professional classification. And someone came who couldn't join because of a conflict, and she said, in classification, and she said, "Look, would you help me open up another chapter, a second chapter?" Jacob, I actually told her, no, this isn't what I do. I'm a business consultant. And she talked me into it, and I did it. And at the second meeting, several people came who wanted to start chapters. At the end of the year, we had 20 chapters, and I wasn't trying. And that's when it hit me that we don't teach this in colleges and universities anywhere in the world, and that the BNI could help to do that. It could provide not only the system and process, but it could provide the training and education to build a referral-based business. And that's when I really sat down and created my plan to scale the business. And here we are today, 37 years later, with 10,800 groups. It's been Mr. Toad's wild ride.
Well, congratulations, sir, on all of your success.
Thank you.
It's this question. I just interviewed a woman. She's been on here before, and I this question, I'm glad that it came up, and it was in that last interview. But it definitely, everything you've done, I believe it hits home for you too as well. Why is human interaction so vital and so important, especially today, our current climate and the Western cultures?
Yeah, look, emotional intelligence is an important topic. It's another topic that's not really taught in school. It's also known as EQ, emotional quotient. So if you work for somebody, and most of the people that I'm working with are entrepreneurs, but if you work for somebody, they might hire you because you're smart, that they believe you're smart. They might hire you because of your IQ, but they're going to promote you because of your EQ. Your ability to effectively interact with other people is critical in promotions, and if you're an entrepreneur, in the success of your business. It's one of the reasons why one of our core values in BNI, and it was one of the original core values in BNI, was building relationships. That networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. It's about cultivating relationships with people. The problem is that because we're not taught this in school, we tend to use networking as a face-to-face cold calling opportunity. Hi, Jacob, my name's Ivan. Let's do business. And we go right into selling. And when in fact, it's really about building relationships. And relationships are all about human interaction, emotional intelligence, and EQ. We don't teach it. I do try to teach it in some of our programs with BNI because it's critical to being successful at networking.
That's great. And this just came to my brain about, I told you I live in the DMV, DC, Maryland, Virginia area. Was fortunate enough about 5 or 6 years ago to get selected to go for a military leadership program to Deloitte University outside of Fort Worth, Texas, if you're familiar.
Yeah, I live in Austin, so
you know it. So that experience, and like I said, I work with people in government contracting from Deloitte, PwC, things of that nature. But I just said it kind of walks into the next part. I really, really got to see, and I'm happy that it was a short workshop / seminar, but to really see at the high level of consultants how vital from Deloitte, especially at the university, how important it is.
Yeah. Yeah, talking about military training, one of my professors at USC in my doctoral program was a retired brigadier general. And Jacob, I got to tell you, he was probably one of the very best professors I ever had, because he came to the table. He had a PhD. He came to the table not only with the academic chops to teach, but also the practical knowledge of leading people. And he was just an amazing professor. The specialized military training programs are amazing if they're anything like him.
Right. No, I appreciate you sharing that. And this one, you pretty much already answered, which is really cool. And I didn't go as far as higher education. I focused primarily on primary and secondary education. That'd be elementary, middle school, and high school. But why do you feel, and like you said, you answered it with higher, either be it undergrad or a master's program. Why do you think we do that? It's some unfortunate in your opinions on that.
I can tell you why. And I taught undergraduate school for 16 years. Many years, it was quite a few years ago. In the early days of BNI, I was also a professor. And I'm just now going back to teaching in an MBA program at Concordia University. I'm teaching leadership this next semester. So I've taught, but I taught as an adjunct professor, which is a part-time professor.
Right.
I was also on the board of trustees for the University of Laverne. So I've been in the university system as a professor and as the board where the president of the university reports to. So I've seen it from both ends of the spectrum. And here's the answer to your question. It is the full-time tenured professors that control the courses at virtually all universities. Full-time tenured professors. I had no control over the courses I taught or the courses that were available as an adjunct. So here's the challenge. Full-time tenured professors in business have never run a business. For the most part, they've never run a business. They teach business.
Yes.
The adjuncts that are the practitioners. But the full-time tenured professors really are. Now, sometimes they get mad at me and they go, no, I run a business. What business? Well, I'm a consultant. Yeah, I'm sorry. That doesn't count.
No.
I was a consultant. It's different being a consultant. Being a consultant is kind of like being a teacher. You know, if there's a disaster going on in the company, when I was a consultant, I was able to go home and sleep at night. The owner of the company that I was consulting with couldn't. So there's a difference between, consulting and running a company, I think. And so the full-time tenured professors, they've never run a business. And that's, by the way, that's the reason why we don't teach sales. I mean, have you ever seen a closing techniques
I've
course?
done them. Yeah. I've been
in a university.
It's very rare.
They're very rare. I only know of 1 or 2 universities that teach a closing techniques course at the university level. It's usually continuing ed of some kind, or it's a private training. So it's rare. And one of the reasons that it's not taught, again, is that it's the full-time tenured professor. They don't want to get their hands dirty and actually make a sale. They want to do marketing and social media advertising instead of networking or sales.
I can definitely understand. I had a seafood business in central Pennsylvania when I was in between my deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan. So to your point, when I got back from my 3rd deployment, had my own business, or before Afghanistan, and really saw when I went to Afghanistan, came back in 2007, 2008, finally, I was older, got my undergrad. To your point, I did a bachelor's of science, business administration, major in marketing, minor in management. I knew more when I had that seafood business than I learned, I feel like, in 4 years.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's sad. It's sad. Listen, when the MBA program I'm teaching, I want those young people to come out thinking, wow, this was useful information out of a course. That's my goal.
All right.
I want to be like that brigadier general, that retired brigadier general that I admire so much, because I learned a lot from him.
No, that's really interesting that, you all your education and everything, you're networking, that you find someone in the military that you probably, I'm not saying you learned the most from, but it sounds like you really took a lot of takeaways.
Carter was his name.
General Carter.
Yeah, well, he was Dr. Carter to us, but yeah, he was a general.
Social media.
And can I just say, look, I'm sure everybody,
go ahead,
I'm sure everybody says this to you, but thanks for your service in the military.
No, it's fine, sir.
It's
sir, I appreciate that.
Such an amazing thing. I really admire people like that. We were talking before we recorded about how my dad served in Korea, and I just have the highest respect for people that serve.
No, I really appreciate that, sir. Thank you again. So this one transitions into something I'm interested about what your thoughts are, and that is social media and networking. Do you see it as a positive, or does it have a negative role today with people building businesses, building relationships?
Well, I think it's like every kind of marketing program. It has both. It's a double-sided sword. There are incredible positives in social media. I'm all over social media. I have hundreds of thousands of followers on my various platforms. So I believe in social media. I think it can also be abused in a number of ways. One is that, oftentimes people use social media just to sell. There's a concept, it's not mine. I heard it a number of years ago. Jab, 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 punch. Jab, and this is a social media concept. Jab, 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 punch, which is Educate, 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 sell. Educate, 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 sell. And it's a strategy that I try to do in my social media. And so if you go to, Instagram, Facebook, or LinkedIn, you'll see posts of mine that are, hey, here's information. Here's a blog I did. Here's a podcast I did. Here's information, education. And oh, by the way, here's a book that I recommend, or a book that I just came out with, or, here's an audio program that I have. So I try to do at least 3 to 1, if not 4 or 5 to 1. And so if you're using social media to mostly educate, then what you do is you build a brand. People come to you to listen to your advice, to read your advice, and when they trust you, and then you tell them about a book you've got coming out, they're more likely to buy. People say to me, how do you have so many bestsellers? And I tell them, getting a bestseller is easy. They're like, how's that possible? No, getting a bestseller is easy. Getting 282,000 members of BNI, that's hard. You get 282,000 members of your organization or clients of your organization, then your books will be a bestseller because you've built a brand, you've built a following. And so that's the positive side of social media. The negative side is that it is, I think I used the expression earlier that sometimes networking is used for face-to-face cold calling. Online, it's used for digital cold calling. And what you have happening is people just going direct to selling. It happens a lot on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. I'm active on LinkedIn, but it happens probably to me more on LinkedIn than any other platform where, people are trying to sell me something. I mean, the ones that just drive me crazy are the ones who say, hey, I have a leads list. You would really benefit from this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, did you even read my bio? Do you even know what I do? I run the world's largest referral organization, and you're trying to sell me a leads list. So, they're just spamming people. So it has both a good side and a bad side. Now, here's another good side that people don't think about. Millennials and Gen Z, sometimes called centennials. A lot of people think, well, these, they don't know how to network. They're all online. Well, I say 2 things to that. One, I'm 66 years old. When I was their age, I didn't know how to network. Anybody my age didn't know how to network. We didn't know how to do it. So don't beat up the young people, because the truth is they're better at it than we are because they're great online. We didn't have online. They're really great at online. They just need to work on the in-person aspect, which, oh, by the way, I did too. And we all did. So I think social media really has the potential of continuing to be very positive if it's not abused. Is that a too complex an answer?
No, you're perfect, sir. That you did perfect. It was perfect.
Maybe not kind of too convoluted an answer.
No, it was good. It was good. You went deep. So that's what we do here. So I appreciate that.
Well, and you know what? I love interviews that are, half hour to an hour because they give me a chance to go deeper. These interviews that are 3 minutes long. Oh man, they're hard to do.
It's hard to it's hard to even get to know who you are and why, BNI is important to you and all the people it's made successful and are happy. Right. So, you walked right into it, and I can just real quickly speak on this. When I did the first job living in, DC, Maryland, Virginia, it was a sales job, cold calling, and they have no solicitation in the buildings. I was on K Street where all the international law firms are, but somehow I finagled and managed my way to get through that. So, and I love the fact what you wrote in Masters of Networking, power of word of mouth. So what's your thoughts on how powerful word of mouth is? Go ahead, sorry.
Word of mouth and referral marketing is, I think the best way to build a business. What's interesting about word of mouth, and I haven't talked about it a lot in my books lately because I talked about it early on, is the truth is that people are more likely to talk about you and your business if they're ticked off at you. and if they're happy with you. Wow. You got to convince them, hey, come on, talk, if you had a good experience, tell people. Whereas they'll do it on their own if they're mad at you. And so you really have to create strategies to get people who are happy with your service to talk about your service. You can't just assume they will do it because life is full. We all have stuff to do, and they don't necessarily do it unless they're nudged or trained, or you explain to them what a good referral for you is. And when you do that, it is referral marketing, word of mouth marketing is the absolute best way to build your business. Now, not a lot of people know this, but when I was a management consultant before I started BNI, one of the companies that I was hired to work with, they hired me to train a sales force. And one of the things they wanted me to train them to do was cold calling. Cold calling, in the past more than the present. In the present, people are just kind of fed up with it. But in the past, it worked. It worked. It was like 1 out of 10 calls, but it worked. But I hated it.
Yeah, I did too, sir. I hated it too, especially in DC on K Street when I told you when it said no solicitation on all the international law firms on K Street. And I don't know. I just somehow managed 80% of the time to get to the gatekeeper. And you obviously know how that process goes.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah. People don't know this. I train people how to cold call. I did it long enough to know that I don't want to ever do it again for the rest of my life. and not that it doesn't work. It can work, but it's just like, it's not fun.
It's like rejection, sir. What do you say to
Yeah. Yeah, no, go ahead.
No, I was just saying this. I tell people when I first started position, it was for Meridian Imaging. They did like outsourced copiers and IT services. I looked at it like it's dating in a way when you cold call.
All right.
No, I mean,
I haven't done a lot of dating.
No, I don't mean dating. I'm not just.
No, you're right. You got to ask a lot of ladies out to get a yes sometimes.
So yeah, my friend, because some of my friends thought I was crazy going down to DC, coming out in July, on the metro in a suit. There's no air conditioning on the metro; it's packed. They gave me a hard time, so I use that kind of analogy or example, excuse me, to kind of.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
and so I think referral marketing. If you could build your business through referrals, I think I said it already, networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. It's about cultivating those relationships. And, if all you do is, do cold calling or direct selling, you basically eat what you kill then. But if you're farming, if you're building a network of professionals that will refer you, you are farming, you are harvesting the results of your effort over time. You could be on vacation and get business because you've built a powerful personal network. You can't go on vacation if you're doing direct selling and make a sale.
Right. Absolutely. No, that was great. No, I'm glad we both came together with that, because I'm glad you had that experience as I did as well, sir, with the word of mouth. But no, currently, thank you for educating me. 10,800 chapters in 76 countries. How do you feel about that?
Honestly, I'm humbled by what BNI has become. I go to an international convention of BNI, and there are thousands of people. I mean, imagine a big venue, auditorium, 3,000, 4,000 people, flags from all the countries represented in BNI, translation booths in the back of the room.
That's pretty awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. And you see thousands of people. I tend to walk in, before the convention starts and just look at the thousands of chairs, the flags, the booths. And I look at this, and it's like going to United Nations meeting where all the countries like each other. It is truly humbling to see what BNI has become. That's last year, actually, the trailing 12 months, the past trailing 12 months, BNI has generated for our members over 19 billion with a B, 19 billion US dollars worth of business for our members through referrals. Now, just so you know, Jacob, 19 billion is more than twice the gross domestic product for the country of Liechtenstein.
There you go, sir.
All right, it's a small country, but still, how cool is that?
Hey,
That
you
we
could
could
put,
do
yep,
a bigger GDP than a small nation in the world.
that's awesome. That's awesome. And that part of that question is it's I just look at it, I think it's amazing. All the continents, obviously countries, but for people out there that are foreign, we probably think that everybody knows, but they don't know, um, in the world, that have no idea. How do we educate on that a bigger scope or bigger platform?
Explain your question. Explain it
My
to me.
apologies. No, it was just part of the last question. How do we if there's a problem with networking in a world where people in certain places have no idea what the word
Uh,
means and they want to get
yeah.
involved, how would you advise?
Yeah, well, that's how kind of we've opened in the 76 countries. Oftentimes, somebody has visited a chapter in another country.
Okay.
So, somebody from one country, um, for example, we opened Germany because somebody from Germany visited a chapter in the United Kingdom, and they were like, "Wow, this is amazing! This would go great in Germany." And so they asked what it would take to start up chapters in Germany. So it tends to happen because somebody sees a chapter. Out of the 76 countries, I only know of two that opened up some other way. One read one of my books, and one just wanted to start a networking organization and reached out to us. So almost all of our countries have opened up because somebody has seen a meeting and said, we need this in our country. And that's how we've opened in so many countries around the world.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Which, by the way, if you go to a meeting if you speak English and you go to a meeting in another country that speaks a different language, you don't have to speak the language. You'll know exactly where they are in the meeting because the meetings are so similar. They're run the same way in every country. And so you can be in a completely different country, not understanding the language at all, but you know exactly where the meeting is if you've been to a meeting in a language that you know.
That's awesome. This one's really important. I definitely, I got it out of your books, just in general. And I 3-4 interviews ago interviewed a friend that he it was basically about mentorship, and just wanted to
Yeah.
see how have mentors, you know, uh, young, middle age, where you're at right now, how have they impacted you, influenced you in your life?
I think mentors are very important in everyone's life, and oftentimes, in the early days, it might be somebody that they may not even be really successful. My early mentors were, high school teachers who mentored me, then college teachers who mentored me. I had one individual in a particular profession. I was thinking of going to law school, who was willing to mentor me, and so you have those people, but you also have to have virtual mentors. I think in my day, a virtual mentor came from a book or an audio cassette tape. Today, oh my goodness, there's just so much content out there. There are podcasts like this that can mentor people. There are YouTube videos. There are audio books, and of course, print books still that you can have a virtual mentor. And so early on, I had virtual mentors, people like Michael Gerber and Jack Canfield. Michael wrote the book The E-Myth, which stands for the entrepreneurial myth. And of course, Jack wrote the Chicken Soup for the Soul series. I mean, those were two people. I'd read their books, and they said things that were very meaningful and powerful for me. Later, I had an opportunity to become friends with both of them.
Oh, that's awesome.
As I listened to what they said to do, as I did the things they said to do, and as I became more successful, I had the opportunity to meet them. And now both of them are very close friends. And I talk to Michael several times a year, and I probably talk to Jack at least 10 or 12 times a year, and see him at least 2 or 3 times a year. And so sometimes your virtual mentors can become real life in-person mentors. It's very important that we all actively participate in lifelong learning. And if we can engage in lifelong learning, we're constantly improving our game. And in order to do that, you have to find people that you trust, that you follow their advice.
Oh, thank you for that. I wanted to add one of my favorite books to a long time ago is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dale Carnegie, interesting business model. He was one of the few people that he did training under his name, and his business is still alive and well.
Right.
Many, many decades later. I think in many people's cases, it was a mistake trying to do their business in their name.
Right.
Because once they pass away, the sage from the stage is no longer there.
That's a really good point.
Carnegie was successful at it, but there are many, many out there, none of which I want to name, that I think will struggle once they retire or pass away. It's one of the reasons why I didn't put my name on my business, BNI. I'm happy to be the founder, happy to be known as the founder, but I didn't want my name in the business because I wanted the business to not be so associated with me that if I was no longer involved in the business, it wouldn't continue.
Great. This is two parts. I think one of the biggest part of this, overall thoughts on COVID, and then I'll lead into the second part of this.
Well, COVID was a frightening time in most people's lives, mine included. It devastated businesses worldwide. Let me give you a little preface to the COVID experience. In 2018, I wrote an article that was published on entrepreneur.com. I'd been talking about this for about a year or two, but in 2018, I wrote an article, and I forget the exact title, but it's basically the future of face-to-faces online. And when that came out, people in my organization some of them were apoplectic. They're like, what? You're the founder of the world's largest in-person networking organization. You're saying it's going online?
Why would you do that, right? Why would you?
Yeah. I mean, some of them are like, Ivan's getting up there in age. He's kind of losing it.
Yeah.
All right, thanks. People really were upset. And I said, look, the future is going to transition to online because of technology. I did not see COVID coming, but I did see technology coming, where mixed reality, the metaverse, 3D technology, holographic imaging, it's advancing at a very quick rate. And as it advances, meetings are going to become increasingly easy. I mean, look at us. We're doing this recording over the computer. When I started BNI, 1985, I started. By 86, the number 2 line item in my budget, the second most expensive item in my budget, was the telephone bill. Number 1 was employees. Number 2 was the phone bill. Today, I don't even know where the phone bill is in the budget. It's virtually nothing, because the technology exists. It allows us to flatten the communication hierarchy. It allows us to communicate easily. So I'd like to think that I planted the seed within my organization so that when COVID did hit, people were ready to transition to online. And so we moved 10,000 chapters, meeting every week in person to online within a matter of weeks in every country. And it didn't happen easily. Some people went in kicking and screaming, but we did it. And we actually grew as an organization in 2020. We grew again in 2021, despite COVID. Many of our members told me that they survived COVID because BNI continued to exist and help them get referrals. And some of them changed the businesses they were in, like a furniture reupholstery shop that, with the advice of another BNI member, became a COVID mask manufacturing shop.
Oh, wow. That's bad.
And they were able to keep all their employees. A beer, and that one was in California. There's a specialty beer company in Australia. And they didn't sell to stores. It was only in bars. And of course, bars were closed. They somebody said to them, hey, you got a lot of alcohol. And he said, yeah, literally tons, vats and vats of it. He said, have you thought about becoming a hand sanitizer business? So he transitioned his business to hand sanitizer and stayed in business until, the worst of COVID was over and back into brewing beer. So COVID was a horrible experience. I believe that your network is a beacon of hope in a sea of fear. And BNI was that for many people. It was a beacon of hope that helped them get through difficult times.
Very, very well put. And pretty much you answered the second part is, like you said, these businesses that you just spoke about, sounds like they're very innovative and use that energy to grow and start networking again. If that makes sense.
You gotta be prepared to pivot. And by the way, if you're listening to this podcast and you think, yeah, well, that's just like a once in a lifetime thing. No, it's not. It might be the worst in our lifetime, but it's not a once in a lifetime. We are going to continue to have massive challenges every now and then. And we need to be prepared to pivot, and we need to be prepared to change. If we are unwilling to change, and there were many businesses that I saw that were unwilling to change, then be prepared to go out of business. I look at companies that are the 600-pound gorilla in the past that were unwilling to change, and what happened to them. Companies like Kodak. Kodak, was clearly the largest film manufacturing company in the world, film processing company in the world. And I don't know if you know this, Jacob, but Kodak invented the digital camera. You knew that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they had the patent on the digital camera. And they licensed it to other people. And one of their executives said, yeah, we don't want this to take away from our processing business. And besides, who's ever going to look at a photograph on a computer? And look what happened to Kodak. They filed bankruptcy, and they're a shell of the company that they were in the past. I don't want to be Kodak. I don't want to be disrupted as a business. I want to lead the disruption. And so my advice to everyone listening to this podcast is lead the disruption. Whatever business you're in, keep your eye on what's going on in the industry and what changes are on the horizon, and be prepared to pivot if you need to, because COVID might be a once in a lifetime, but the need to pivot will not be once in a lifetime. It's going to happen multiple times.
Absolutely. That was great. Someone that's just starting out networking and wanting to get into entrepreneurship, how do you make that transition? Would you advise someone that really wants to start a business, but, just figuring out, who their target is, if that makes sense?
Yeah, well, networking is a tool for entrepreneurs, like marketing, sales, social media. They're tools for entrepreneurs. So if you've decided to become an entrepreneur, one of the things that you want to work on as a skill set is your ability to network effectively, which is about building relationships with people, like one of your earlier questions about human interaction. It's something that you need to learn how to do. Entrepreneurship is special. I can't imagine ever not having done what I did and starting a business. I'm a big fan of being an entrepreneur. But what young entrepreneurs need to understand is that it takes time to be successful. You hear about these people that, in a few years they become multimillionaires or billionaires. That's not the norm. I tell people I'm a 20-year overnight success. It took me 20 years to build a truly international company that, I was making more than just a salary. And because I was constantly reinvesting most of the profits back into the growth of the business. So networking is a tool for entrepreneurs to build their business. And I urge entrepreneurs to read books, listen to podcasts like this. We're talking about networking. Go to YouTube. Visit my blog, ivanmisner.com, where I talk about networking a lot. It's all free content up. But yeah, networking is a piece of entrepreneurship. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. No, it was perfect. Something just came in my brain. I interviewed back a good friend of mine, where I'm originally from Williamsport, Pennsylvania, a restaurant called Franco's. It's an Italian restaurant, amazing food. If you're ever there, check it out. Williamsport, Pennsylvania. And I asked him a question, and I want to get your thoughts. He goes back and forth from New York City a lot. from what I know, about 90% of the restaurant businesses every year fail. And unfortunately, COVID happened. It's got to be, that percentage had to be higher. So someone that's in, I'm not saying, I just use that as an example, but I kind of ties into what you just said. People would just want to make $1 million tomorrow. You know what I mean? And what would you say to someone like the example I use, my good friend that owns the Italian restaurant's been there since 1984. But you really gotta dig in, even if you're not in the restaurant business. I just want to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, restaurant business is a tough business to be in. I mean, I've never owned a restaurant, but your stats are probably reasonably accurate. It's a tough business to be in. Look, from my perspective, when I tell people, I mean, there are people out there saying, "Hey, you can get rich overnight," and I think they're lying. I mean, can you? Yeah, you could also win the lottery. I mean, it's possible.
Right.
But what I teach people is, you want to be successful in business, do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times. And all too often, I see business people doing 1,000 things 6 times. They're jumping from one thing to another thing to another thing. If I have any superpower as a business person, it is that I am a dog with a bone. I take a concept and I work it and work it and work it and work it and work it until I can get results. And I think sometimes entrepreneurs aren't willing to put in that ongoing, repetitive effort to make something successful. It takes a real commitment, and it takes a commitment to stop chasing bright, shiny objects and to focus on what works based on the mentors that you have. And that's my philosophy on success. Is it's about doing 6 things 1,000 times. I mean, It's not the only thing, but it's one of the most important ones.
It's kind of like the military in a way. I can, just share that little piece about repetition and consistency.
Yeah, they drill you and drill you and drill you. Why? So that it becomes second nature.
Exactly.
So I've never been in the military, but I did martial arts. And one of the things that my sensei would say is perfect. He said, practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. And you have to practice and practice and practice and practice. And each time you practice, you have to practice it as perfectly as you can so that you get better and better and better. And as you drill and drill and drill, it then becomes second nature so that you just react if attacked. And I can tell you that several times in my life, I have been attacked and I didn't even think. There was no hesitation. I just reacted. And the reaction came from years of drilling. And, you use the military as an example. I'm using a martial arts example, but the truth is it's really similar in business. If you drill and drill and drill and drill, you're going to be able to respond to challenges much more effectively.
Thank you for that, sir. Close out here shortly. Just want a couple of last few ones for you. What advice would you give someone that is attempting to start a networking group, or someone that is just trying to connect with people to grow professionally?
Well, if you want to start a networking group, I would urge you to go to BNI.com and connect with BNI, because we would love to help you start a chapter. We only allow one person per professional classification.
Right.
So, there are always opportunities to open up chapters all around the world. And if you want to connect with people to grow professionally, groups like BNI are one of the kinds of groups that you want to participate in. But I also recommend organizations like a Chamber of Commerce. I think chambers I think they're beat up too much as networking organizations. They're not a referral group, but they're a great place to meet local business people and create visibility. And I urge my BNI members to go join the local chamber. I also recommend service organizations like Rotary, Lions, Kiwanis. They're great organizations. They're not referral groups, but you're going to meet people that will help you in your business in some way or another. I was a Rotarian for 16 years, and I met people that definitely helped me in business. And so I would urge you to diversify your personal networks. That is, don't join 2 groups. Don't join 2 BNI groups or 2 groups like BNI. Join a BNI group, join a Chamber of Commerce, join a service club. Now you're diversifying the kind of connections that you have out in the community, and you're building a powerful personal network. And that's what it's about. If your network is only If your network is a mile wide and an inch deep, it'll never be very powerful. What you want to do is build a network that is both wide and in some places deep, meaning you're building long-term relationships with someone.
Right. And I just wanted to add one that I was working with prior to COVID, and I still have that relationship with that gentleman. Is called SCORE in DC, or they're all over the country. It's free. It's with SBA. It stands for Service Corps of Retired Executives. Just one I wanted to add. If you from that's
SCORE's a good organization. I'm familiar with them.
Yeah, that was just one I wanted to add.
Yeah, they're part of the SBA. They've been around for many, many, many years, and there's certainly some retired professionals that are involved with that could be mentors for people.
That's great. Well, before we close it out, sir, any last words you'd like to share with the audience? Again, thank you so very, very much for your time this afternoon.
My pleasure. The old saying, Jacob, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
Yes, sir.
I don't think it's either. I don't think it's what you know or who you know. It's how well you know each other that really makes a difference. Now, I can pick up my phone and look at my contacts, and I have some amazing contacts in my database. But the real question is, if I called one of those amazing people, would they answer my call? And if I asked for a favor, would they be willing to do the favor? So it's not just who you know, it's how well you know them that really counts, because that's where the rubber meets the road with networking. When you build a relationship strong enough where you pick up the phone and you call somebody in your database and you say, hey, can you help me out with something? And they take your call and they say, oh, are you kidding? Yeah, I'd be happy to help you. And you've built a powerful personal network.
That's great. Oh, Dr. Misner, what would you say to people wanting to reach out and just BNI.com?
Yeah, BNI.com for anyone that would like to visit a BNI chapter anywhere in the world. We have some that are still strictly online. We have some that are hybrid now. They meet online 3 times a month and meet in person once a month. And we have many groups that have gone back to meeting in person again. So BNI.com, but also ivanmisner.com is my blog. I have well over 1,000, maybe 2,000 posts. I've been posting for 15 years. Virtually all free content up there on networking and scaling a business and success in business. Check out that site.
Well, Dr. Misner, it's been a pleasure. I want to thank you very, very much for taking time out of your day to join All Emotion, and look forward to having you back here maybe next month, sir.
Hey, anytime, my friend. I've got a couple of books coming out next year, and it'd be great to be back and talk about them.
That would be great. Thank you, sir. Thank you again, Dr. Misner, for stopping by All Emotion. We look forward to having you back, sir. Also, please check out Dr. Misner's blog. It's ivanmisner.com and the BNI networking at www.bni.com. And be sure to pick up a copy of his latest book, Who's in Your Room? I want to thank you all again for tuning in. Please check out our brand new website at allemotionpodcast.com, where you can access all our content and episodes. Also, please scroll down to the bottom of the homepage and subscribe to our mailing list, where you can stay up to date as we publish new episodes and our monthly newsletter that's coming. Again, this is Jake from All Emotion. Take care and be safe.